I never thought I'd share this event with anyone, at the risk of sounding illogical, but I thought this may be the best platform to do it. I acknowledge that I was quite young when this occurred, so I will only share what I remember. But I know what I saw. I'm 28. As a child, I was in the same multi-grade classroom for grades 1 through 3, so I had the same teacher for those 3 years. Every year, on March 1st, my teacher would explain that each day until St. Patrick's Day, her mischievous friend, Patty the Leprechaun, would visit our classroom to cause mayhem and play innocent tricks on my classmates and I. Some examples would include coming into the classroom in the morning and our shoes would be tied together at the laces, or we'd return from recess or music and the classroom would be a mess, accompanied by a note from Patty on the whiteboard. In the back of my mind, I wondered if it was our teacher doing this, but it was still delightfully fun, and I look forward to this every year nonetheless. My perception of these events changed one day in the 2nd or 3rd grade, somewhere between March 1st and 17th. We were in class when suddenly the lights turned off and the computer shut down. Naturally, I turned around to see if someone had flicked the lights off, but no one was standing at the switch, not even near it. The next thing I remember is someone knocking at our classroom door. A student opened it, but there was no one there, and reportedly no one in the hall. Our class was giddy with excitement, as we wondered if Patty was responsible for this. I acknowledge these events are fairly explainable, but alongside the classroom door, there was a window that was as tall as the door, but only about a foot wide. I was gazing at this window, curious to see if the mysterious knocker would return. I was just feet away from the door. Suddenly, I saw a small green man flash across the window. The best way I can describe it is a small, hazy side profile of a small man, about a foot tall, with a brown beard and a green suit. He was in a stance as though he was running, although he was frozen in that position as he flashed across the window. In a split second, it was gone. The figure looked apparition-like and didn't appear to have the tangibility of a physical object. It didn't look like a piece of paper being pulled across the window. I realize that it's totally possible that another staff at the school was in on it and somehow did this. I've pondered the possible ways that this could have been accomplished, and I can't seem to come up with an explanation. And I know I didn't just imagine it, because a moment after I saw it, another girl in my class exclaimed, "I just saw something run past the window." 20 plus years later, I know what I saw, but I still don't understand it. I'm left wondering, were my little 7-year-old eyes deceived by a simple trick? Or did my elementary school teacher have some Miss Frizzle-esque magic about her and somehow summon a magical creature to mystify us? So I don't know what made me think of this today, but many years ago, my family was driving home from a shopping trip. Just for fun, my dad decided to take one of the scenic routes that ran through the mountains north of Park City, Utah. It was one of those dirt roads on which you could only drive like 20 miles an hour, so it took forever, and I remember being aggravated that we couldn't just take the highway. Well, I ended up noticing this weird heap off the side of the road, kind of hidden amongst the trees. I made my dad reverse the car, and that's when we realized it was some kind of animal. It was lying on its side, as if asleep, and wore one of those cattle tracking collars around its neck. But we could tell that it wasn't a cow of any sort. And because it was facing away from us, We couldn't get a good look at its face, but it was about the size of a bear and had thick brown fur. The skull didn't really look like a bear's though. The closest thing I can compare it to is the heads of the creatures from where the wild things are. It was curled up in a ball, the way people sometimes do when they're sleeping and trying to get warm, and we could see the soles of its feet. This is the really creepy part, because if it wasn't for the feet, we probably just would have assumed it was a bear. But these weren't paws. They were more human-like, much paler than the fur, and totally creepy. I could basically make out distinctive human toes, only these were much larger than the average person's. The way it was curled up, and the way that the head and feet looked, led us to believe that this wasn't some ordinary animal. Obviously, with it lying down, I couldn't tell for sure, but it didn't look to be that much taller than a person. It was just so round. I think that's one of the things that struck me most. The thing's body was almost comically spherical. Needless to say, none of us dared to get out of the car to investigate further, and after a moment of kind of looking at each other and going, "What the hell?" we decided to just move on. Keep in mind, this took place circa 2006 or 2007, so smartphones weren't as commonplace as they are now, and none of us had a good camera to snap a photo. Looking back, I really wish we did, because then maybe we could have uploaded it to the internet and gotten some answers. I don't know. What do you guys think? This story happened, I'd say, back in 1997 or 1998. I was about 9 or 10 then. My sister and I weren't the brightest or best behaved little angels. For fun, we decided to do the whole sneaking out at night thing and ride our bikes around the neighborhood. Don't worry, we never did anything worse than trespassing on an old church playground. She was only 7 and I was 9. We had gotten big kid bikes, mountain bikes with multiple gears, and would ride them around half the night, just enjoying ourselves. One night, we decided to swing back up another road that we hadn't visited before. It was a very rural area, and it was quite spooky. There were stories of the forest being haunted, and witches living nearby. Actually, a real witch did live in the area, but that's another story. So, it was about 11 p.m. at night, and there was next to no moon, so it was like extra dark. Well, just as we're heading back home, down one of the main roads, we hear the clatter of clawed paws on concrete. It's late, we're both a bit tired, and suddenly we hear claws. We both turn around to see where the noise is coming from, and catch sight of something that to this day makes my blood run cold and sends a shiver down my spine. In the dark behind us, not 20 or 30 feet away, was one pair, then 2, and then 3 pairs of glowing red eyes and a spine-tingling growl. Our first instinct was a good one: run. Both of us slammed into full power, stepping through the gears, and within 5 seconds we were pushing 4th gear and probably topping 30 miles per hour. We only glanced back once to see all 3 pairs of eyes and could almost hear their breathing. We literally skidded into the front lawn, off of our bikes, and literally jumped into our open windows a second later, only to hear the claws clattering at the window. Needless to say, we did not sleep that night.